The sound in the ballroom was a roar of money, clinking crystal, arrogant laughter, the rustle of silk, and toll worth more than most people's cars. And then a gasp that sliced through it all. It came from a circle of sleek tailored suits and gowns, where a young man in a blue and yellow varsity jacket, his face flushed with cruel amusement, held an empty champagne flute upside down, dripping from its bowl, a torrent of blood. Red Cabernet Sauvignon soaked through the delicate rose gold sequins of the woman standing before him. The wine ran in rivulets down her bare arms, stained the bodice of her gown a ruinous purple, and pulled on the marble floor at her feet. She didn't jump. She didn't scream. She simply closed her eyes for one long, terrible second as his laughter, loud and brash, rang out. "Whoops," he grinned, not meaning it at all. "Wes, you should watch where you're standing." The woman opened her eyes. And in that moment, if you were close enough, you'd have seen it. Not anger, not humiliation, but a calm, absolute frost. This wasn't an accident. It was an execution. And he had just signed his own death warrant. Before we go any deeper into the night, this arrogant, rich kid lost his family $500 million. Hit that subscribe button. This channel is built on stories of justice, karma, and the quiet power you never see coming. You won't want to miss what happens next. Her name was Elara Vance. To the glittering crowd at the Metropolitan Grand's annual Horizon Gala, she was a ghost, an entry on a curated guest list, a name without a face, a mystery appended to the venture capital firm, Aethelgard Holdings. She had arrived alone in a simple rose gold gown that spoke of understated wealth. Her dark hair swept into a loose chine. She moved through the ballroom like a shadow, observing a faint, unreadable smile on her lips. The gala was a nexus of power. Old money from Boston, tech bros from Silicon Valley, oil heirs from Texas, all here to see and be seen to broker deals on balconies and in quiet corners. The centerpiece of the evening that whispered about triumph was the impending merger between the steel and manufacturing conglomerate Cross Industries and the green energy titan Aethelgard. A $550 million deal, a marriage of old industrial might and cutting-edge sustainable technology. It was all anyone could talk about. And then there was Lucas Kraus, 24 years old, with the sculpted carelessness of someone who had never heard the word no. Heir to the Kraus fortune, recently bounced from his third Ivy League school, and currently the star of a social media feed dedicated to supercars, private islands, and mocking anyone he deemed beneath him. He wore his family's varsity jacket, a relic from his brief donor-funded stint as a university rower. As a badge of entitlement. He held court near the massive ice sculpture surrounded by a psychopathic crew, his voice always a decibel too loud. His mother, Victoria Kraus, the steely CEO of the family empire, watched him from across the room with a mix of indulgence and mild exasperation. She was deep in conversation with Aethelgard's lead negotiator, a sharp-eyed woman named Miranda, finalizing the last symbolic handshake for the morning signing. Alla had found a moment of quiet by a floor-to-ceiling window looking out at the city lights. She was thinking not of deals, but of the hydroponic lab her company quietly funded in Detroit, the one turning abandoned lots into community food sources. This gala was a necessary evil, a formality. The deal was already done in her mind. The cross-manufacturing pipelines were perfect for scaling Aethelgard's new solar substrate. It was logical clean. Lucas, emboldened by his fourth glass of bourbon, noticed her. "Check out the wallflower," he sneered to his friend. "Rose gold, more like rose old." "Who brought their librarian?" His friends chuckled. He needed a bigger laugh. He needed a spectacle. He swiped a full glass of expensive wine from a passing tray. "Let's see if we can add some color to her night." He sauntered over. Lara sensed him coming, but didn't turn. "Hey, you." Lucas's voice was a slap in the quiet space. She turned slowly, her expression neutral. "Yes, you're with the Aethelgard group, right? The tree huggers." "I'm affiliated," Elara said, her voice soft, almost hard to hear over the distant music. Affiliated? Lucas mocked her tone. Well, affiliated. My family is about to own a huge chunk of your little Save the Planet project. You should be thanking me. My family's money is what's going to make your hippie dreams actually matter. Elara's eyes held as the value is mutual and the dreams are quite concrete. He leaned in his breath sour with alcohol. You know what I think? I think you people are all talk. Fancy labs, big words. But in the real world you need real power. You need a cross. He gestured vaguely with the wine glass. The liquid sloshing. You should be circulating, making friends. Not hiding over here. His eyes glittered with malice. Let me help you make an entrance. He didn't shove her. He didn't yell. With a deliberate, contemptuous flick of his wrist, he appended the glass. The wine arced through the air, a dark red cascade that struck her chest and soaked downward in an instant. The cold shock of it made her gasp. The sticky wetness saturated the fabric, weighting it down against her skin. A single drop traced a path down her cheek like a tear. The gasps from the nearby crowd were immediate. Lucas's friends exploded in laughter. He smirked, dropping the glass. It shattered on the floor. Whoops. Guess you should watch where you're standing. Victoria Cross turned at the sound. Her face, previously a mask of polished composure, blanched. She saw the drenched woman, the shattered crystal, her son's triumphant sneer. Her mouth fell open in pure, unvarnished horror. This wasn't just bad manners. This was a cataclysm in a rose-gold dress. For 10 seconds, there was a bubble of surreal silence around. The wine dripped from her fingertips. She looked down at her ruined gown, then slowly, with a terrifying stillness, back up at Lucas. The laughter died in his throat. Her gaze wasn't fiery. It was arctic. It was the calm of a judge who had just heard all the evidence she needed. Lucas, Victoria hissed, striding over, her heels clicking like gunshots. She grabbed his arm. What have you done? Apologize this instant. She was in the way. Lucas whined, his bravado cracking under his mother's grip. You idiot, Victoria whispered, the words venomous. She turned to Era, plastering on a smile that didn't reach her panic-stricken eyes. My dear, I am so sorry. My son he's had too much to celebrate. This is unpardonable. Please let me have my assistant take you to the penthouse suite. We'll get you a new dress, the finest we can find. All held up a hand. The gesture was small but absolute. Silence fell again. That won't be necessary, Elara said, her voice now clear, carrying a strange, resonant calm. She didn't look at Victoria. She kept her eyes locked on Lucas. The celebration, she said, is over. She turned and walked away, not in a rush, not in a flustered stumble, but with a regal, deliberate pace. The crowd parted for her, a sea of stunned faces. She didn't head for the exit. She walked straight toward Miranda, the Aethelgard negotiator who had seen everything. Her tablet clutched to her chest like a shield. Victoria, desperate, followed. Miranda, please. This is a terrible misunderstanding, a childish prank. All reached Miranda and spoke, her words low but firm. Call Jameson. Initiate the Valkyrie protocol now. Miranda's eyes widened for a fraction of a second, then hardened into professional resolve. She gave a sharp nod, pulling out her phone and walking swiftly toward a private inner room. Victoria looked for Miranda's retreating back to Aurora. The what? What protocol? Who are you? Era finally met Victoria's gaze. My name is Elara Vance. I am the majority stakeholder and founding partner of Aethelgard Holdings. She let that hang in the air. The blood drained from Victoria's face completely. The quiet woman, the wallflower, was not an employee. She was the architect. She was ADH Memorandum of Understanding for the 550 million merger. Allah continued, her tone as smooth and cold as the ice sculpture now melting behind them was contingent upon a good faith partnership on mutual respect. Your son's display was not a prank, Mrs. Cross. It was a statement of character, and Aethelgard does not partner with poor character. What followed was the most expensive 10 minutes in Cross Industries history. In the private annum, Miranda was on an encrypted line with Jameson. Aethelgard's ruthless, brilliant soul. Valkyrie is a go. All terms are null. Seize all data transfer. Notify our legal team to file the withdrawal under Clause 7b. Demonstrative bad faith and material risk to brand integrity. Jameson, who had never liked the Cross's old-world bluster, simply sat on it, aback in the ballroom. The news began as a tremor. A lawyer from Cross Industries rushed to Victoria. Phone in hand, his expression ashen. Victoria, Aethelgard's legal. They've just pulled the deal. They've invoked the morality clause. The press release is already drafted. Victoria staggered as if physically struck. Stop them. There's a 72-hour cooling-off period. They've cited the public nature of the breach and potential reputational contagion. Their lawyers say it's airtight. They're also pulling our access to the preliminary tech schematics. Our R&D division is locked out now. Lucas, finally grasping the magnitude of his action, spluttered. What? They can't do that. Over some spilled wine. It's a dress. I'll buy her a 100 dresses. Victoria turned on him, her composure shattering. You brainless fool. It wasn't a dress. It was a 550 million contract. It was our entry into the next century. It's gone. Do you understand, GMA? Her scream echoed in the now hushed ballroom. The entire event had stopped. Every titan of industry, every socialite, every journalist present was witnessing the live implosion of the Cross dynasty. Elara, meanwhile, had accepted a towel from a horrified but sympathetic waiter. She stood near the entrance, a portrait of dignified ruin. A senior journalist from the Wall Street Journal approached cautiously. Ms. Vance, is it true? Is the Cross a third merger off? Elara looked at the reporter, then over at the shattered Cross family, the furious mother, the now whimpering son. Aethelgard's mission is to build a sustainable future, she said, her voice carrying that requires building with partners who have a foundation of basic humanity. We no longer believe Cross Industries shares that foundation. Effective immediately, all discussions are terminated. It was a corporate execution delivered with elegant finality. The fallout was swift and brutal. By morning, the story was everywhere. Not just the business news, but the tabloids, the social media feeds, the talk shows, the video filmed on a dozen smartphones went viral. Rich brat torpedoes family's $500 million deal. Cross Industries stock plummeted 18% in pre-market trading. Their older investors were livid. The merger had been their lifeline to relevance. But the deeper story, the one that truly captivated the public, was about who was she. The investigation by the media uncovered a stunning truth. Elara Vance wasn't just a wealthy heiress. She was the daughter of Walter Vance, a reclusive industrialist who had made a fortune in patented battery technology and quietly given most of it away. Elara had grown up not in mansions but in fieldwork sites in Kenya and Norway, learning about geothermal energy and conservation from her environmental scientist mother. She held 3 PhDs in material science, economic anthropology, and sustainable systems. She had founded Aethelgard not to be rich but to be effective. She owned a mere 7% of the company's public shares but controlled 62% of its private super voting stock. She was in essence a ghost queen of green technology. Her net worth was estimated at over $1.4 billion and she lived in a modest brownstone in Brooklyn. Biking to work, the public adored her, she became an icon of quiet power, of intelligence over arrogance. Mims flourished. Don't be a Lucas. The phrase Valkyrie protocol entered the lexicon for a swift, devastating professional cut-off. For the Crosses, it was a hell's cape. Lucas, the once untouchable heir, was disinherited in the court of public opinion. His father, a mostly absent figure who spent his time on a yacht, flew into a rage and publicly cut off Lucas's trust fund. Victoria was forced to resign as CEO to appease shareholders. The family was now a laughingstock. Their name synonymous with toxic self-sabotaging privilege. The true depth of the reckoning unfolded not in headlines, but in silent empty spaces. The Kraus family's fall was not a single crash, but a slow-motion collapse of an empire built on brutal pride. Within a month, the story had evolved from scandal to case study. Business schools taught the Vance valuation, a principle weighing ethical capital as heavily as financial capital. But for Elara, the victory was ash in her mouth. She walked the floors of her brownstone at night, haunted not by Lucas's sneer, but by the ghost of the pipeline that would now not be built. The carbon reduction targets now delayed. Her revenge had been perfect, and it tasted like dust. One evening, Miranda found her in the Aethelgard greenhouse lab staring at a solar substrate prototype. The very technology the Kraus deal was meant to manufacture. "We did the right thing," Miranda said. Not for the first time, Elara touched the delicate film-like material. "Right and necessary are not the same as good," she replied. Her voice barely a whisper was scorched the earth. "I need to know if something cleaner can grow in its place." This restlessness led her to a derelict factory on the outskirts of Dayton, Ohio. A Kraus-owned plant shuttered 5 years prior, it was a tomb of rust and shattered windows, a monument to the very industrial decline her new partnership sought to heal. As she stood in the cavernous dusty space, a figure emerged from the shadows. Not Lucas, but Victoria Kraus. Stripped of her CEO title and channel suit, she looked like a ghost of her former self, dressed in a simple trench coat, her face bare of its usual armor. The confrontation was not explosive, but exhausted. "I came to see the grave," Victoria said, her voice hollow. "This was my grandfather's first plant. He built it with his hands. Lucas would have sold it for parts." She turned to Elara, her eyes raw. "I indulged a monster I created. I mistook his volume for strength. You have a strength that needs no volume. I hated you for it. Now I just envy it." She didn't ask for forgiveness. She presented a sealed envelope. "The deeds to this plant and 2 others like it. The board is liquidating them for pennies. Take them. Do with them what my family no longer can." It was not a peace offering, but a transfer of bones. Acknowledgement that the old world had to die so a new one could be built. All took the deeds. And in that gesture, the story transformed from one of cancellation to one of reclamation. The $550 million deal was gone. But in its place emerged something more radical, a direct resurrection. Aethelgard, using the capital from its new partnership, bought the derelict Kraus plants for a token sum. The Valkyrie protocol was followed by the Phoenix project. A week later, in the stark minimalist lobby of Aethelgard's headquarters, a broken figure waited Lucas Kraus, looking hollow and pale without his varsity jacket in a simple shirt and jeans. When emerged from the elevator, escorted by Miranda and a calm but watchful security detail, he rushed forward only to be gently but firmly blocked. "Lara, Miss Vance, 5 minutes," he begged, his voice cracking. She paused, regarding him as she might, a curious, mildly distressing specimen. "Please," he whispered, tears of genuine, self-pitying panic in his eyes. "My life is over. My family were ruined. I didn't know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. It was just wine. Just stupid wine." All studied him. The apology was for the consequence, not the action. The regret was for his lost status, not her ruined dignity. "Mr. Kraus," she said, her voice still quiet, but now it felt like the quiet of a deep, unyielding ocean. That night wasn't about wine. It was about the glass. You saw something beautiful and thought your only power was to spill it, to stain it, to reduce it to a mess you could laugh at. That is a poverty no amount of money can fix. She took a step closer and he flinched. You asked me to thank you for your family's money making my hippie dreams matter. Let me be clear. My dreams of clean air, just economies, a livable planet, were here before your money, and they will outlast it. Your money was never the point. It was a tool and you proved yourself a danger to the workshop. She glanced at Miranda. See Mr. Cross out as he was led away shattered. All turned and walked back toward the elevator. She didn't feel triumph. She felt a profound weary sadness. A $550 million deal that could have accelerated green manufacturing by years was gone. Thousands of potential jobs vanished. All because a boy who had everything understood the value of nothing. But Vance was not one to dwell. The ceremony for the new factory was not held in a hotel ballroom, but on the greasy floor of the old Dayton plant. Elara stood before a crowd of former Cross employees, community leaders, and her engineers. This place was built on the idea that strength comes from dominating others, she said, her voice echoing in the vast space. It closed on the idea that value is only measured in quarterly reports. We are here today to say that strength is found in resilience. That value is measured in legacy. She then revealed not just plans for solar substrate manufacturing, but a training institute within the factory walls, promising first hires to the very workers the old empire had discarded. It was a full-circle vengeance so complete it became grace. The final powerful twist came not from Era, but from the universe's quiet sense of irony. A year to the day after the gala, Elara received a package at her office. No return address. Inside, meticulously cleaned and restored, was her rose gold sequin gown. Folded with it was a single sheet of expensive stationery. The message was not an apology, but a testimony written in an unsteady hand. You wore this and were called a wallflower. I wore it for years and was called a queen. It looks better on you. The wine stain Ar noticed had been expertly removed from the bodice, but the fabric under close inspection held the faintest memory of the shape. A ghostly watermark only visible in a certain light. She did not put it on. She had it framed in clear glass and hung in the lobby of the Dayton factory. A permanent exhibit beside the first solar panel produced there. The placard read, "A foundation of both strength and stain. All growth begins here." It was a monument to the truth that the most powerful transformations are not those that leave no mark, but those that integrate the scar into the blueprint of a stronger future. The rich bully had tried to diminish her with a vintage. She had turned his family's collapse into fertile ground. And in the end, the quiet woman did not just cancel a deal. She crafted an entirely new economy. From which part of the country are you watching this video? The story of coasts and heartlands, of old factories and new futures, lives everywhere.